It's an early morning on a bright spring day in March 1794. We're at a sturdy but humble cabin on the outskirts of Fort Nashboro, in what will be the state of Tennessee in just 2 years. There is a warming fire in the fireplace, and the cabin is glowing softly from the light of several candles. Although candles are precious and few, the man considers it worth the extra expense, for he is writing one last letter to his family, who is quietly sleeping as he makes his final preparations for his long journey through the wilderness to the Ohio country. My dearest wife and family, today I set out upon my quest to seek for us a rich and pleasant land in which we may increase our fortunes and thus ennoble our posterity with such blessings as we have not received. With great anticipation, I begin this expedition, yet my exuberance is more than a little dampened by the prospects of leaving you, my dear ones, etc., for so long a time. I have endeavored to set as much of my affairs in order as seemed prudent before a long journey. Mr. M., our good neighbor, has given me his word that he will assist you when needed for those labors to which I generally apply myself for the continuance of your health and well-being in my absence. I have, I think, sufficient provisions for the journey laid in, as well as powder and lead, ample enough to assist in the getting of game in the wilderness and helping to extend my rations as needed. I hope to see you all in 6 to 8 months, at which time I expect to return with the glad news of rich land established and registered in my name in the Ohio country. Mr. Nathaniel Massey has extended invitations to 25 families to join him in settling the area around Manchester, and it is my purpose to be among that number if it be the will of Providence. Until our happy reunion, I remain with love and devotion, forever yours, J. Bender, March the 25th in the year of our Lord, 1794. This done, he lays the quill pen down and caps the inkwell to keep the ink fresh. Examining his work and satisfied with what he sees, he begins with careful and deliberate fingers to fold the precious paper, knowing that it's the last missive his family will have from him for quite some time, as the area he will be traveling through is mostly wilderness, and there will be few opportunities to post a letter home. He then addresses it to the entire family and recaps the inkwell. Then he props the letter up between the inkwell and his cup where the family can see it when they arise. Getting up and going over to the blanket chest where he keeps his hunting accoutrements, he lays aside the blanket roll and then his hat, which has been placed on top to keep it from damage. Opening the chest, he examines first the tomahawk, lays it aside, then looks at the loading block, loaded with 4 balls, patches, and lubricated with bear oil, lays aside the flintlock cover for inclement weather, as well as his precious maps. Removing the tray, he enters the main compartment of the box and pulls out first his heavy belt with pouches attached and arranged to their proper location. And then the hunting pouch with balls, patching material, and the patch knife attached. Next, the all-important haversack, containing his corn boiler and much of the important items he will need on his trip. Next, the powder horn, fully loaded with powder and ready for the trail. Then his leather-covered canteen bottle, which he sets to his side. And finally, his linen hunting frock. All items meeting his approval, he then begins to put on the remainder of his clothing and putting on the various accoutrements, thinking of the journey that lies ahead and eagerly anticipating the opportunities that will lie in his path and the game that he will hunt along the way. Next, he puts on the heavy leather belt, buckled and adjusted properly for just the right tension to hold all of his pouches on in just the right spot. Then moving the pouches around where things are easy to hand, including the large hunting knife and the leather pouch, which safely houses his folded maps. Then he checks the location of the soft elkskin possibles kit that hangs at his right side. Going over to the table, he procures the tomahawk, which he then carefully places at the small of his back, where it is easy to hand should he need it. The next item to put on is the hunting pouch, which goes over the right shoulder, where it can be easily accessed for those quick reloads. Of course, then he puts on the powder horn with the deer antler powder measure attached to the strap. Then he checks the sharpness of his patch knife, which is razor sharp, and satisfied that it meets his approval, he places it carefully back in the sheath. Next, he places the loading block around his neck. This too will be very important, as he never knows who he will meet along the trail, whether friend or foe, as well as dangerous animals. Then over the left shoulder goes the haversack. And going over, he picks up his heavy blanket roll, containing much of his food and extra clothing, which he then places over his shoulder. And last but not least, the canteen. This is put on last because it cannot be covered by the other straps, as it needs to be easy to reach, not only for quenching his thirst, but also for ease of refilling from the many creeks and streams that he will pass along his journey. Now, he removes his knit cap and places his black, flat-crowned hat in its place, and going over to the mantel, carefully removes the flintlock from above the fireplace, where it is kept warm and dry. He examines the lock, making sure that it is properly oiled, and then closes the frizzen and places the frizzen cover over it. Now he extinguishes the candle, and straightening his shoulders, he confidently strides to the front door, where he exits the cabin. Although he is somewhat experienced in the backwoods, the man still has a lot to learn about traveling through the wilderness. He has had limited success where he has been living, as a series of bad winters and poor investments have left him with little. Even the cabin they have been living in was loaned to them by a helpful neighbor, and every day that they have been there, he has longed to better provide for his own. Now, he leaves with high hopes that the Northwest Territory will be a new beginning for them all, where they can truly prosper. He has spent most of the money they had left on his outfit for the few items that he still needed for the trip. He has packed them the best he knows how, and so with a firm but steady step, he says his last goodbye to hearth and kin and begins the 12-mile walk to the fort.